Hello and welcome to the Happy Little Futures podcast. As always, let's begin with a nice deep breath in and out. Fantastic. So, today I'm going to talk a little bit about the general ups and downs of family life. Things that might come and go, things that are coming and going in our house at the moment, and how we are sort of working together to work through this, sort of the important things that are helping us to communicate and to proceed forwards either with solutions or just with a greater understanding of each other. So I mentioned last week that our son was struggling with going into school a little bit, and we'd had a little bit of a tantrum the one day going in. He went in on the Friday and we had a lot of issues trying to get him dressed in the morning and trying to get him out of the house. It was a two-man job in the end, which I'm fortunate enough to have had the opportunity to have that second man to take him in with me on that day. And this week it's continued. We're having a little bit of fight back every morning about getting dressed and leaving the house and getting shoes on and all the processes involved. So for us, we've had a few issues since before Christmas where he's been lashing out a little bit more. He's not been himself. We've opened conversation with him, discussed how he's feeling, why he might be feeling these ways. When he's in sort of a calmer state, he's struggled to sort of pin down anything in particular. Again, when he's been in sort of that calmer state since these issues going in school, I've begun to open up a bit of a dialogue about how school is. Is there anything he's struggling with or finding particularly hard? We normally focus on gratitude and positivity, but also we do try to open up those lines of conversation. Often when we are finding something a bit difficult, even if it's just, can't get this meal right and I want to, we'll sort of open that up so that they understand that it's okay to talk about those difficulties that they're having. He has opened up on one or two things that are worrying him, and I gather from the way that he's spoken about it, actually these things happened before Christmas and he's only just sort of feeling in that place to speak about it, which is difficult from a parent's perspective because you want them to be able to communicate these things with you when they happen and tell you so that you can problem solve straight away. And it's not always the case that can happen. It's also not always the case that the people that are caring for them in the moments that they are feeling these things are aware, because obviously, especially at school, there's however many other kids around and there's lunch times to take into account and other times that they're not with them. So it's not the most easy of communications to keep going all the time. And I feel like actually before Christmas he wasn't fully aware that this was an issue, but since he's gone back, he's starting to notice that this is where what's causing his sort of worry, and that little bit of anxiety actually that he's got with it. So since he's opened up a little bit, we've spoken with him about sort of other people's emotions and how we can't always predict them, we can't always manage them, we can't always necessarily even help those people. And so in those moments, how it's okay to step away and take a moment for yourself. It's okay to talk to someone, a responsible adult, if you feel you need to, if you're not feeling comfortable in a situation. And how it's okay to feel worried and struggle yourself if someone else's emotions are coming out in possibly physical ways, or verbally. Obviously, it's a lot for a 4-year-old to take in. It's not something. It's something that we find and have found with all three of ours. If we drip feed here and there over time, they come to understand and notice these points more. They come to realise those moments where what we are saying is applicable. And this has happened with things such as taking a deep breath and how to take a deep breath and things like that. Over time, they've come to understand sort of how taking a deep breath can help them through us modelling, through us helping them to do it in the moment. They've come to understand how they feel when they're going into that sort of heightened state of emotion where it's sort of they're edging towards fight or flight and stuff like that. And that's just through sort of continued discussion. As well as this sort of opening up lines of communication and sort of trying to get to the bottom of what might be causing this problem, we've also... I'd been observing him. He was off for a couple of days last week. I'd been observing him in the moments where he was starting to head towards that sort of more physical lashing out state. And I'd been noticing like what raises the alarm to me when he's in these moments. So what I've started to do is sort of tailor how I deal with this, how I'm teaching him to deal with these emotions and these feelings. Excuse my laptop making a noise in the background if it did. Sort of tailor how he can begin to calm himself in these moments, find a sense of balance in these moments where maybe he's struggling to. I've done this through sort of helping him to sort of tense his arms and his wrists and then release them, and guiding him through that moment, in the moment and outside of the moment, so that he's got that sort of skill and awareness when he's not in a heightened state of motion. Oh, excuse me, yawning, how rude. When he's not in a heightened state of emotion. I was just recording a meditation just before this, so I'm in a slightly more calm place, obviously, because I'm yawning. So I've sort of been helping him to sort of notice in moments where he is in a heightened state and when he is not in a heightened state, how he can release his body, how he can release tension from his body. And whilst this isn't an immediate fix, as with a lot of things, it takes time to build up those skills. It's a practice. It's something that doesn't always come naturally. Even to myself, after years of meditation and mindfulness, there's certain things that I really have to work on and practice. After just a week of doing this, we're starting to see changes. We're starting to see that actually he's not kicked off as much. He's not got into that deeper, more heightened emotional state. And so it's important in this moment really to acknowledge that paying attention to our children, to them as a human being in their calmer moments, but also in those more heightened states of emotion, can be really important to sort of gain an understanding of where it's coming from and whether actually this is that they're hungry or or there's something else going on. and also to gain an understanding of how they might be feeling in their body when they are not necessarily able to communicate this in a sort of comprehensive way. It helps us to gain an understanding of how we might still be able to help them despite this. I cover a lot more of this in my Helping Kids course, which will be running in February if you are interested. But I just wanted to share with you sort of a present moment, a journey that we're going on at the moment with him through that. I also wanted to share with you that whilst he is going through this and sort of still struggling with those morning routines and getting back into the flow of things and not wanting to go to school because of worries or whatnot, and because we've just had Christmas, who would want to go to school right now? I want to stay in bed most days. I also wanted to raise awareness of how it's affecting other people within the family. It obviously, there's a bit of anticipation from myself and my husband first thing in the morning, and whilst I am sort of trying to breathe through that and sort of every day is a new day and reset, that's not something that always comes naturally to myself necessarily, or my husband. So it's not something that's necessarily that easy to do on a daily basis, depending on what's going on. This morning, for example, another reason why I'm yawning is my youngest, for some reason, was up at 3:30. Why she woke up at 3:30 in the morning and refused to go back to sleep until the second that we got up with her, and then she was like, I'm tired, I want to go back to bed, for a whole 3 minutes. Like, sometimes we're not necessarily in that better state of mind, and whilst we've got our own coping strategies, there's all little things that build up, isn't there, in the background. That's part of being a parent, part of looking after children, be it through parenthood or through childminding or being a teacher. You are having to try and find yourself and connect with yourself in moments and reset yourself in moments where it's not always very easy to. You've got other people screaming or kicking off, or he'd said, she said, this happened, that happened, and it's not always that easy to find ourselves. So for me, a big thing that makes a difference is just generally having a more balanced state, a more balanced base level, which I get through sort of meditation, regular mindfulness practices, stuff integrated into the day. So that's sort of somewhere that, as an adult, I feel it's important to acknowledge that when our children are going through these stages, we can't always find that balanced place as readily, because it does grind you down slowly. And in those times, I mean, especially when you've got multiple children whose emotions you're having to balance, or work around, or sort of find your own balance within, in those moments it can be very difficult to try and stay on that path. And it's okay to find that difficult. It's okay if it's not something that comes very naturally in those moments. It's okay if you snap. It's okay. It's natural to snap. It's natural that if you're exhausted from having been up at whatever time in the morning and stuff like that, or you've not been sleeping well, or they've not been going down as normal, and so you're more stressed on an evening because they're not going down as normal, and then bedtime takes longer, and then you don't get as much downtime yourself or much self-care as you need. It's okay if you have moments where it's hard, moments where you can't find that balance, moments where you might snap or go, oh, can you not just stop? That's natural. That is normal. What is important is to acknowledge that in these moments, re-find yourself as best as you can in those moments, and try to move on with presence of mind, move on with connectedness to yourself, and try to find, even if it is a single breath throughout your week, throughout your day, throughout each minute, try to find that moment that you can take for yourself. As well as us struggling, my eldest has started to become a little bit more on edge, a little bit more sort of in a heightened state of emotion herself in the morning, a little bit more uncertain of going into school. She's a lot more sensitive in general. She's quite a sensitive kid anyway, but in particular, she started off really strong this term. I feel that's a really bad word to use in that situation, but you get the general gist. She started off going into school confidently. The first day back this term, after all the trouble that we had last term, with her sort of like struggling to go in, the first day back this term, she was the first one through that door, and she didn't look back, she didn't question. However, now we're back to hesitating going in and stuff. And I think some of this is probably down to the fact that her brother is struggling in the mornings, and mornings aren't quite as relaxed as she'd like them to be, and she would like to be off and doing her own thing first thing in the morning, but we're sort of like, we do have school, we do have to keep this needle pushing forwards, we do have to keep going on to get you into school. So she's struggling a little bit on that front as well. So we're having to be a bit more mindful with supporting her through these moments too. I quite often feel like that parent speaking to the teachers all the time, but I also feel it's important to let them know where my kid's coming in at, let them know what they have got coming through the door, for my kid's sake as much as the teacher's sake. Because if my child, for example, suddenly kicked off and that teacher had no idea what was going on, it would be a really difficult place. They'd have to start from scratch with 20 odd other kids in the classroom. Whereas if I can just sort of go a quick, as they're walking in, this is where they're at today, it's been tricky getting them in, then they understand that, okay, this kid might need a bit more support at some point during the day. So I feel it's important to keep that line of communication open a little bit. And maybe I am that parent, maybe I am, but for me, I just feel that if it was the other way round, I would want to know that this kid's struggling a little bit at the moment, even if they're not showing it at school, even if they seem completely fine. There's something bubbling under the surface that maybe I need to be aware of. So that's where we're at. We're sort of trying to, it feels like we're trying to juggle a lot of balls. It's just, we're not really juggling a lot of balls. We're just trying to go back to basics, I suppose, with helping each other to find that place of balance, to keep those lines of communication open, make each other feel comfortable, understand that we can talk to each other and it is okay to have sort of moments where you're not in a better place, not in a good place, and it's also okay to talk about those. So I just thought I'd update you after last week, saying Happy New Year, sort of let you know how it's going. Also let you know that the basics of this are developed within the Helping Children with Mindfulness course that I run, which will be running in February. If you go on and apply, sort of sign up now, you can get an early bird offer. So that's going to be running in February. So I thought I'd inform you of that, as well as letting you know that you can also sign up for it's not too late to sign up for the January coaching. The live is next Monday, so Monday the 22nd. So if you're feeling like you are in a place where everything is that little bit too much at the moment, there's lots going on, the kids are struggling to settle in school, I can't find myself, I can't, where do I come into all of this, and sort of more snappy than usual and stuff like that, join me on this, because it's very much mindfulness and meditation that fits into your life, and it can be so simple to fit it into your life, to create a meditation habit as needed, or to build something more on the go that when you are struggling you can draw upon in a moment more easily. That again is on the website at the moment. Introductory offer of £37 for this month. So have a look and sign up for that. But more than anything, just know that you're not alone. If your kid's struggling at the moment, if they've got the January blues, or they've got sort of pent up emotion from previous things that have happened at the end of last term, they'd rather it was Christmas and they were at home playing with their toys, you're not alone. This is normal, and it's okay if you find that you're struggling, but it's also okay to ask for help. It's okay to take a moment for yourself. It's okay to try and find some form of balance for yourself in this moment. So on that note, I'm going to love you and leave you. And I'm going to take one last deep breath with you as well. So we'll take a deep breath into our stomachs and out through your mouth. And I'll speak to you all next week.